Today's episode of Live with Kelly and Mark didn't start with anything dramatic. There was no big announcement, no breaking news, no unexpected interruption. And yet, something felt different. Not in a way you could easily explain, but in a way you could feel. Viewers across the country noticed it almost instantly. A slight pause here, a softer tone there, a shift in energy that wasn't loud, but was definitely real. And sometimes, those are the moments that stay with us the longest. So what exactly changed today? Let's take a closer look. The power of small changes. When people tune in to Live with Kelly and Mark, they expect something familiar, a comfortable rhythm, a sense of ease, a connection that feels natural and consistent. That's part of what has made the show so beloved over the years. But every now and then, something subtle shifts, and even if viewers can't immediately explain it, they notice. Today felt like one of those days. It wasn't about what was said, it was about how it was said. The tone felt slightly softer, the pacing felt just a bit slower, and the conversations felt more reflective than usual. Energy on live television is everything. It shapes how we experience every moment. And today, the energy felt different. Not negative, not uncomfortable, just quieter, more grounded. There were moments where the conversation didn't rush forward, moments where silence was allowed to exist for just a second longer. And in live television, that's rare, because usually everything is fast, everything is moving, everything is filled. But today, there was space, and that space made everything feel more real. The human side of live TV. One of the reasons audiences continue to connect with this show is because of its authenticity. It doesn't feel overly produced. It doesn't feel distant. It feels human. And today, that human side came through even more clearly. There were small expressions, subtle reactions, moments where emotions weren't hidden, but gently present. Nothing overwhelming, nothing dramatic, just real. And sometimes, that's exactly what viewers are looking for. You might wonder, why do people notice such small changes? The answer is simple. Because people aren't just watching, they're feeling. Regular viewers develop a sense of rhythm with the show. They understand its pace, its tone, its personality. So when something shifts, even slightly, it stands out, not in a disruptive way, but in a meaningful one. It creates a moment of awareness, a moment where viewers pause and think, something feels different today. The role of unscripted moments. Live television is unpredictable by nature, and that's part of its beauty, because not everything is planned, not everything is rehearsed. And today felt like a day where those unscripted moments stood out more than usual. There were transitions that felt more natural, reactions that felt more genuine, and conversations that seemed to flow without pressure. These are the moments that can't be scripted, the ones that happen in real time. And often, they're the ones people remember most. In today's media world, everything often feels polished, edited, perfected. But shows like this remind us that perfection isn't always what connects people. Connection comes from authenticity, from honesty, from moments that feel unfiltered. And today's episode leaned into that. It didn't try to be perfect. It simply allowed itself to be real. And that made all the difference. The audience response. Even without major headlines or dramatic events, viewers responded because they felt something. And when people feel something, they engage, they comment, they share their thoughts, not because something shocking happened, but because something meaningful did. A shift in tone, a change in energy, a moment that felt just a little more human. It's easy to overlook quiet moments,
They don't trend, they don't go viral in the traditional sense, but they matter because they create connection, they build trust, they remind viewers why they keep coming back, not for the big moments, but for the real ones. And today's episode was full of those. A different kind of impact. Impact doesn't always come from something loud. Sometimes it comes from something gentle, a subtle shift in tone, a slightly different pace, a moment that feels just a little more personal. And that's what today delivered. Not a headline, but a feeling. And sometimes that's more powerful than anything else. Next time you sit down to watch Live with Kelly and Mark, don't just press play out of habit. Pause for a second. Let yourself settle into the moment. Because what you're about to watch might not be loud, dramatic, or headline-making, but that doesn't mean it isn't meaningful. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones that arrive quietly, the ones that don't interrupt, but gently shift the atmosphere in a way you can feel, even if you can't fully explain it. So instead of just watching, try noticing. Notice the pauses, those brief, almost invisible moments where nothing is said, yet something is felt. Notice the expressions, the small changes in a smile, the softness in a glance, the way a reaction lingers just a little longer than expected. Notice the rhythm of the conversation, how it flows naturally or slows down or changes direction without warning. And most importantly, notice the energy, because energy tells a story that words sometimes can't. It reveals what's real. And today's episode felt real, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that demands attention or sparks instant headlines, but in a quiet, grounded, deeply human way.
And that's exactly why people noticed it. Because when something shifts, even slightly, it stands out, not as a disruption, but as a moment of awareness. A moment where you stop and think, wait, something feels different. And that feeling, it matters. Because in a world where so much content is fast, loud, and constantly competing for attention, we've almost forgotten how powerful subtlety can be. We've become so used to big reactions, bold statements, and perfectly timed moments that when something simple and genuine appears, it catches us off guard, in the best way. Today's episode was a reminder of that, a reminder that not everything needs to be big to be important, that not every moment needs to be explained to be understood, and that sometimes the things we feel the most are the things we can't quite put into words. It was a reminder that authenticity still matters, that real connection doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence, from being in the moment, from allowing things to unfold naturally without forcing them into something bigger than they are. And maybe that's why this episode stayed with people. Not because it shocked them, not because it surprised them, but because it felt honest. And honesty has a way of lingering, long after the episode ends, long after the screen goes dark. It stays with you, in small ways, in quiet reflections, in the way you remember how it made you feel. So the next time something feels a little different, don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it just because it isn't loud or obvious. Lean into it. Give it your attention, because within that difference, there might be something meaningful waiting to be understood, something real, something human, something that reminds you why you connected with this show in the first place. Because at the end of the day, it's not always the biggest moments that matter most. It's the ones that feel true, the ones that don't try too hard, the ones that simply exist as they are. And in a world filled with constant noise, endless scrolling, and fleeting attention, those quiet, genuine moments, they still matter, more than we realize. Maybe that's why viewers noticed today, not because something dramatic happened, but because something authentic did. And sometimes, that's more than enough.